Hi there. Welcome to the first celebrity edition of Maryland Divorce and Custody. I have with me one of my very best friends, Melissa McDonald, who I met in law school. And the two of us share an interest in celebrity meltdown, breakdown, drama that I think we developed in the halls of the University of Maryland Library when we should have been reading something about torts. But Melissa and I have been talking about Jay Cutler and Kristin Cavallari's messy celebrity divorce. And so what we thought we would do is Melissa is going to kind of be the point person on the up-to-date drama and whatever is going on with Jay and Kristin. And then I'm going to kind of chime in with some points about my take as the family law professional. So we're going to first time, we're going to see how this goes and see if everybody likes it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa. What is going on with
Wow. Well, Amos, I feel like in these trying times that we are in, I have a very poor conception of time, if that makes sense. But I went back and I looked, and it isn't just me. This whole divorce, the Cutler-Cavallari divorce, has been playing out at what I feel like is warp speed. And you can perhaps, offer some insight into whether that is sort of an average thing or whether, that is something that is maybe rich people specific. But, so Kristin filed less than 2 weeks ago. So she's on the gram so there was a whole mess where they were in the Bahamas. I'll circle back to that in a minute. And from her social media, you could kind of see that things were perhaps problematic. And when they get back, she does this whole Instagram post that's all like, love and light, and she didn't say consciously uncoupling, but that type of, mumbo jumbo.
I saw that.
Right. And then they file the pleadings. And, first of all, so, court stuff is generally public. Our divorce, if you file it, and I know you can only comment on Maryland law, and I'm also only barred in Maryland, and I don't know anything about family law other than the bar exam. But when you file a divorce pleading in Maryland, that's a public filing, right?
Right.
So anyone can go to the courthouse and they can pull your divorce pleading and they can read it and, maybe make a copy, like whatever.
Yes, it's a little bit more difficult now that things are in MDEC and electronic filing, but that is absolutely true. And one of the things that experienced family law practitioners know is not only can anybody else do it, and maybe who knows why they might be interested in your divorce pleadings, but really your adult children or even your non-adult children can go into the courthouse and pull up whatever mom and dad had their attorneys say about each other in filings, and it's permanent and it doesn't go anywhere. And these records are, they're kept forever. And some people write things in these pleadings that they really regret, and they're really hideous and they're ugly. And that's kind of some people make the mistake, in my opinion, of putting too much kind of sordid details into these papers when they're angry, right? Kind of right at the initial filing. Sometimes people are very, very angry. And you can't take it back. I mean, once it's in there in the record, it's in there. And that's why the pleadings, like any other pleading, are form pleadings for the most part. We got married this date. We had 2 children. Here's where the children live. We have these assets. Someone makes this amount of money, and pleadings you can obviously add whatever you like to it. You're not really supposed to, but there's a reason why form pleadings exist, to keep things basic rather than airing all your dirty laundry. That's what discovery is for.
And strategically, sometimes you kind of want to hold things close to the vest. You want to put out as much information as you feel like as you need by statute, but you don't necessarily want to tip all your cards. I mean, there might be reasons why you would want to, but you don't necessarily want to. At a divorce, you're going to get some sort of an evidentiary hearing, right? Like if it's needed. It's not as though a divorce is just going to be ruled on without any sort of evidentiary considerations by the court.
Exactly. It's not going to get ruled on the papers. There is going to be, if the court has to make a decision, it's going to be an evidentiary-based decision and in an adversarial context with objections and exhibits and the whole nine. What you put into the divorce pleadings can be strategic both ways. If you want to put a certain information out there that's more than just a base pleadings. That can be a strategic decision. But overall, I completely agree with you. Why, if I have a client who is messing up and the other side files some sort of pleading that says, he has these hideous social media posts, and I guess I shouldn't say he, but what am I going to do? I'm going to read this thing. I'm going to go right to my client and I'm going to say, knock it off. You can't delete them, but stop posting. Like, no more posting on social media until this whole thing is over. So that,
well, that's just good advice in general. Stop saying trashy things about people on social media.
All right, that's another post. That's a different thing.
That's a whole different topic.
Okay.
Well, that actually sort of brings me to my next question. So, Kristin is putting this social media stuff out there about how, all the love, even though we're getting divorced, we love each other, blah, blah, blah. And then her lawyer filing a pleading, and that pleading is saying, and I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure that I get this right. I don't want to paraphrase. It says, quote, that the Cutler, quote, is guilty of such inappropriate marital conduct as renders further cohabitation unsafe and improper, which is a strongly worded. I mean, it's non-specific for the reasons that and certainly there's been a fair amount of speculation about on the internet about what that might mean, but it is a fairly strongly worded allegation. So I guess my questions are my first question is, how much does your client drive your strategy in terms of how you're going about pleading things? Because I know that there's different grounds for divorce, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Maryland. How much does, what your client's mindset or their goals are drive what you're doing versus lawyer, I'm the lawyer and I'm making the strategic decisions, and client, you're taking a backseat on that?
I've only practiced family law, and so I can only really speak to it in family law. But best case, you hope that you are in lockstep with your client when it comes to what you're representing to the court, what you're putting on paper to opposing counsel and letters and discovery and those types of things. And that your client is doing something similar in reality, right? That's the kind of the worst case scenario is you're saying X and your client is over here doing Y. Kristin's post, which is, we love each other and it's so respectful and we'll be best friends forever, doesn't quite jive with the pleading that is a fault pleading from my understanding. I don't have a degree I can't practice law in Tennessee, but it's a fault-based pleading saying essentially that Jay has been a bad husband. He has had marital misconduct, which is different than adultery. I did look that up.
So what's the difference between fault? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but what's the difference between fault and no fault? And Maryland is no fault, is that right?
Maryland, there are two no fault options for grounds for divorce. It's separation for 1 year and mutual consent. Those are the no fault grounds for divorce. And frankly, that's what 80, 90, maybe more than 90% of the divorces are granted on. Some examples of fault-based divorce in Maryland are adultery, desertion, cruel and excessively vicious conduct, which is essentially domestic violence. And then there's some fun ones like insanity and incarceration and things that, no one's touched probably in years.
Well, incarceration would be relevant to my practice, but.
Right. Well, I did one divorce based on incarceration, and it's because my client really wanted to let the other side know why they were getting divorced.
Now, so that's another question I had. Is there a strategic reason why you would want to allege adultery versus go the no fault, seemingly less adversarial route with it?
It depends. Yes, there can be strategy to it, but it can also just be vindictiveness or hurt or anger or whatever range of emotion that is. In celebrity high asset divorces, when someone's I think Q rating is at issue, or they're in the tabloids or they're on TV and they want to stay popular, fault-based types of things, adultery, scandal, that can have monetary and quantifiably monetary value, right?
So wait, will the court change what you get in terms of settlement? Does whether it's fault or no fault have any effect on that?
In Maryland, my experience is fault has unless you can really link it to economics, fault really is not going to change the outcome in the court. And in fact, most judges want nothing to do with a fault-based divorce because they really feel like instead of doing like a criminal case, they're supposed to cast judgment on the husband or the wife or whomever, whatever we're talking about, as that they're a bad person or they did something wrong and therefore they get less or have to pay more or something like that. And that's very rare. Now you have to do something pretty egregious, right? And I really think that there's got to be, in most cases, some sort of connection to financial harm as well.
So it wouldn't just be like, he's cheating on me, therefore he shouldn't have custody of our kids. Those things
right.
are
and that's correct. Those two things are not really linked. Now
that makes sense.
You can leverage an embarrassing cheating situation, or if the cheating happened when, for example, in one of my cases, you're supposed to be watching the children and you run across the street to shtup your neighbor.
Oh no!
That could have an impact on custody, but an affair, or like some sort of hotel tryst after a nightclub does not mean so-and-so is a bad mom or so-and-so is a bad dad.
That actually reminds me of a funny thing that happens. My office used to be located in one of the district courts in Maryland. And one day there was a very exciting day in the courthouse. Now in criminal proceedings, there's a couple different ways people can be charged with a crime. And one of the ways that people can be charged is someone can come in and swear out charges in front of a district court commissioner. Any citizen off the street in Maryland can do that. So one day someone came into the courthouse and swore out adultery charges, because adultery is still a criminal offense in the state of Maryland. Now, I want to say the maximum penalty is like $50 fine or something like that. But this was very much the topic of hot discussion in my office. And the conclusion that we arrived at as non-family law practitioners is this: the reason why adultery would still be a crime. So if you are accused of a crime, you are in jeopardy of getting a criminal conviction. You can invoke your Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate yourself. Shout out to the Fifth Amendment. And in a criminal proceeding, there's no inference that would be drawn in terms of whether or not you're actually guilty, but that's not the case in a civil proceeding. In a civil proceeding, the finder of fact can draw an inference from your invocation of the privilege. So divorce being a crime, you can invoke the privilege and you don't have to get into embarrassing details about what has happened, and everybody sort of wins because the fact finder can infer that you have done something untoward, but you don't have to actually answer any questions about it. Now, was our assessment right? No?
I think there's something to that, but the statute of limitations for adultery is only 1 year.
Oh, come on, guys. It's a non-penitentiary misdemeanor? I didn't even think of that. Right.
Yeah. So the protection of invoking your Fifth Amendment can only apply for 1 year back to the date of your testimony. So
I think in non-penitentiary misdemeanors.
I kind of think it's just a leftover kind of patriarchal BS law in the books, if you ask me. But
fair enough.
I think
I try my best, though. It would never be me.
I do think the court enjoys being able to say inference taken, Fifth Amendment invoked, move on.
Yeah, they don't generally want to hear that.
All right, back to Kristin and Jay. What do we got?
Yes. So the pleadings are filed. The pleadings are somewhat contentious, and then there was all this business about how they're at odds about custody. And Kristin wants to buy a house, and Cutler's out there saying, no, that's ridiculous. And then there was some speculation or rumor or conjecture that he didn't want to agree to let her buy a new house unless she agreed to whatever he wanted in terms of custody, because they didn't agree. Now, is that a kosher move to try to leverage, like, I'm going to hold up our finances until you agree to the custody plan, or is that fair game? If it's true, which who knows whether it's true.
It's like one of those situations where you don't want to know how the hot dog is made sometimes. Should it be that way? I don't know. No. I know that, for example, Montgomery County Circuit Court bifurcates in divorce cases the custody and the property parts of the case to try to avoid this bootstrapping that you're kind of talking about. But the reality is, I think in highly contested cases, some people have a priority over here and some people have a priority over here, whether it's children, whether it's access, whether it's child support, whether it's property distribution, and what's important. You know, if you can figure out what's important to the other one, like that's how a full, comprehensive global agreement sometimes gets made. It's not pleasant, and sometimes people leverage children, sometimes people leverage finances, sometimes people leverage social media posts. I mean, you know, leverage is leverage.
I hear that. Now, so there was a disagreement, and then, you know, at seemingly warp speed, suddenly everyone is on the same page with regard to custody, and also Kristin is like buying a new house, which to me maybe makes me think that there was something to that rumor that he was using that as leverage.
Well, I think most of the time in these celebrity divorces, when you're also talking about high assets, I would be shocked if no one makes an effort behind the scenes to resolve these cases in mediation or closed door meetings with attorneys for days, if not weeks, before anything is filed. What I would suspect is Jay and Kristin have probably been fighting behind the scenes for a long time, could not reach any type of accord, and one of them I think Jay filed first, actually. I think probably what happened was he got fed up and said, all right, you won't move off your position that I find unreasonable. I'm going to just get into the court system and start this ball rolling. And then Kristin, I think, filed a much more kind of aggressive pleading about, you know, whatever she said. That's kind of what I expected. And then it looked like once the pleadings were in the public is commenting and talking and chattering and all this is going on, then some kind of dominoes fell, and it looks like she's getting a house that she wants, and he's all of a sudden getting the time with the kids that maybe he finds acceptable.
Yeah, that seems to be. And, you know, I had my suspicions during I think I'll sort of circle back to this. I had my suspicions during their Bahamas trip, because in my experience, having, you know, sort of seen this play out, you know, among people that I know in my real life, I think there are some social media tells when there's trouble in the air, when people are fixing to get divorced. And there were three things that and this is, you know, your mileage may vary. You know, we don't need a million comments about like, no, not me. I do that anyway. But, you know, and I think all of these working together, and, you know, I'm just sort of spouting off the mouth here. But number one, when she's in the Bahamas, she was posting tons of workout pics with her very hot trainer. Not that there's anything untoward there, because I'm pretty sure he's homosexual, but I think number one is if someone all of a sudden out of nowhere starts posting tons of workout pics, something's up. Absolutely. And number two.
Let me chime in. Someone suddenly getting into shape is one of our kind of telltale signs that there is either the desire for something else going on or something else is going on.
And that could just be, I mean, on its own, like maybe it's innocent, you know, I mean,
no,
everybody cares about their health.
In context with other things, you know, you hear these other things, you can go, well, is your spouse, you know, have they gotten a gym membership lately? Oh my God, they're working out like crazy all of a sudden. You go, okay, interesting.
And then you move on to number two, is she was also posting tons of extremely thirst trappy pictures while she was in the Bahamas. And thirst traps are, to me, suddenly ramping up the thirst trap. And some people like a thirst trap, and that's fine. No judgment. If you have a hot bod, show it off. But if it's all of a sudden out of nowhere, I'm suspicious. I am suspicious.
I think that's probably fair game.
And the third thing was that Cutler, like I at first, when I was looking at this, because I had read about it somewhere and then I went and checked it out, I didn't even know that Cutler was there. Like, is he even in the Bahamas? Like, what is happening? So the third thing is significant other suddenly noticeably absent from your social media. That's a kiss of death right there. And one of the most incriminating ones was she had this picture of her and her kids on the beach, and it was captioned something to the effect of everything in the world that matters. Okay, well, there's a very noticeable absence there.
Yeah, there's somebody missing from that one.
And it's been for someone like Kristin, who is, you know, has been, you know, playing the media, since she was like a teenager and on Laguna Beach. And she's always been very smart about, her image, what she's putting out there. And that's intentional. Of course it's intentional. So
media is, and smartphones in general are a gift and a curse. There's so much information in one of these things that can make or break. And, we make a habit if it's the right type of case, we get into all the social media, all the Facebook. You can download someone's entire Facebook archive, every piece of data with like 3 or 4 clicks. It's nuts. You can plug all these smartphones into computers and find out location and text messages and pictures and crypto data in where the picture was taken and when. I could talk for hours about like the implications of social media if you have kind of the resources and the reason to dive into it like that.
Oh, look, and everything. Look, your phone keeps everything. Like, I'm more in criminal. My practice is more in the criminal aspect, and you see this in criminal cases as well. Not only the social media posts and texting, and social media posts being used in cases, text being used in cases, phone location data is huge. If the cops, I don't know, you probably wouldn't have the ability to like dump someone's phone, but if you are getting into a situation where you can do, forensics with someone's phone, or even if you have access to their Google account and you can get into their Google location data, like Google, I have an Android phone. Google knows like where I've been, what I've been doing, who I've been with. Google can predict where I'm going to go. The amount of information that is out there, if you're able to access it, is unbelievable. So it's really something to think about. It's something to consider and think about.
It's actually terrifying. It is.
And as one of the judges in Baltimore City used to say, guide yourselves accordingly.
When we do cell phone forensics, if someone has been silly enough to make a decision that they're going to delete their text messages or something like that, and we get their phone and we download it, the deleted text messages show up in red. It's like just so juvenilely like clear what has happened.
So wait, do you have the ability to like do forensics and like dump someone's phone and get all that information? Is that something that people do in divorce proceedings?
Oh yeah, that's great discovery.
Really?
I love driving people nuts with that. I've absolutely cracked cases, just like put a complete stop to them by making a request to inspect their cell phone and making a copy of the hard drive. And
the courts will totally just be like, yeah, you guys could do that.
When it comes all the way down to the wire, Baltimore County, I've had 3 cases where it got challenged and 2 it got upheld. 1, the court said you don't need that. I disagree, but who cares? And that's actually the only places I've been challenged with it. Most of the time, people either turn over the phone or all of a sudden their like settlement positions change.
That is wild. It never even would have occurred to me that in a divorce, but certainly once the cops are the cops, like, or the FBI, that's the FBI. It never would have occurred to me that stuff would even be, that stuff would be fair game, like, stuff that's on your phone versus like stuff that you've sent out to other people that those people are potentially sharing.
Yeah, well, if I was defending against it, that would be my argument to say kind of you need to limit what you're really asking for. But, some people think that through and then other people just panic and say, oh my God, you can't see my cell phone.
I guess there's no reasonable expectation of privacy in a family law proceeding.
Hey, I can make lots of arguments as to why I need stuff.
I love it.
It's just right there. It's all right there. Last question on Jay and Kristin.
My last question?
You have one more?
Do I have one more? I don't know. I think I might have asked all my questions. This is all just making me think. I got to stay married. I got to do what I can to stay married.
True. I got a question for you. I think it's pretty clear that they don't have a prenup, right?
I mean, they must not. I don't know. I actually don't know whether they have a prenup.
Then how on earth did that happen? Jay Cutler, I think, from what I've seen, had made like $120 million in the NFL.
Woo!
And
I mean, I think Kristin has her own money, and she certainly, if you watch Laguna Beach, has, comes from a family that has a fair amount of money.
Well,
so,
but that's
not $120 million money. I mean, that's crazy.
but all this more reason to me, if she, if these are two sophisticated people with, Jay Cutler's got an agent. He's probably got more than one attorney. He's probably got financial advisors. Kristin grew up in a affluent family. She's been in the TV world. She's a TV star for 15 years, 20 years.
She definitely has an agent.
Yeah, she has an agent. How did they not come up with a prenup? Are there
any limits on prenups? Like, are they only like good for a certain amount of time, or are they just good forever? Or are there times where the courts won't allow you won't allow a prenup to stand?
Oh, great. Oh, whew, great questions. You can write in sunset provisions into prenuptial agreements, which is something I try to, I think I try to use them frequently. So this agreement would be in effect for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, something like that. But after a certain amount of time, the concern about the prenuptial, why you feel like you got to protect certain assets, might dissipate, might pass, and then the prenup kind of is no longer in effect. Other prenuptial agreements, you sign them as long as they're not unconscionable or there wasn't signed under duress. And if they don't have an expiration date, they don't have an expiration date. Prenuptial agreements cannot address custody of children, though. You can't, in advance agree who's going to have custody of children. That's not going to fly, at least not in Maryland.
Okay.
All right. Well, this was fun. We were all over the place. I have no idea how long this has lasted. I will try to edit it down, but thank you very much for doing this with me. I hope you enjoyed it. And if any of you made it all the way through our conversation, thank you very much. Be sure to like this video, share it, and comment on it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Well, as Rory likes to say, because my son loves YouTube, so he always likes to say, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button.
All right, I'll start saying smash that like button. Thanks.